I just thought, do I need to restock the fridge? But anyway, just very. Oh dear, no, you're getting up. What's
back's
next?
hurting.
Back's hurting. What else is hurting? Stress of Kingston. Too much
it's
shopping.
fine. No, it was nice. Do you know what? I always go shopping when it's hot.
Do you?
Well, yes,
What, you go to the air
because
conditioning?
aircon. You're sitting in the car, driving there, cool.
Yeah.
You get out, going into the shops, cool.
Right.
So,
Yes, the shops
Cooler
are
than
quite
being at
nice,
home,
but
isn't
sometimes they're too cold.
yeah, it was quite nice.
When we were in Miami, I liked shopping because
Oh,
it
yes,
was
it was
cheaper,
nice.
but
Cheaper.
also
Oh, yeah, the air
it was like
conditioning in
100
the mouth.
degrees and the
Yes.
car park was melting,
Yeah.
but you needed a jumper inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's freezing. They
I
have,
mean,
they only have to turn up their turn up the temperature by 3 or 4 degrees, and it would be
yeah.
normal and decent money, they'd say.
Yeah.
Energy, they'd say. Because they have it at about 16 centigrade, don't they? So
Yeah,
it's
it's
about,
not
it's
really
usually about
nice.
65 Fahrenheit.
And it's
isn't it?
like
It's
hotel.
not
It's not
freezing.
quite enough. You just need sort of
It should be
17,
like
needed long
70 or
17 or
yeah.
18.
Yeah.
It's just confusing.
When I was massaging, I always used to have my room at 19 was my limit, and that expired when I was doing something. So, but people used to say, "Oh, my nose is gone." I said, sorry, the conditioning is broken.
Sorry, Christine,
Sorry.
I'm ruining your recording.
No, I just,
Yeah, that's you
I'm
gone.
being anal because it's just not quite, just, you know how it's kind of like,
There's no one there. Oh,
no, that's
That's
the
the recording,
recording.
isn't it?
So just then come to a standstill. Lift and roll the shoulders, that's just opening the gateways to the top of the head. Breathing in, raising your arms up, clasp, reverse, just that extension. Press your feet down, stretch up, and just slightly go from side to side. I'm just thinking I'm the least yogically dressed person here.
You look lovely.
I don't know, it's not exactly a flattering look, is it? And then just turn slightly to one side.
Floaty.
Floaty. And then slightly to the other side. And then just stretch up, lift your heels, and then lower your heels. Lower your hands, there's plenty of space now for us to go, turn to the left, look beyond the third finger, come to the centre, and turn to the right. Come to the centre. Just lift your arms almost, and then just float them back, and feel that they're floating on a cloud. And just do that again and see if you sense that there's a slight subtle difference to the left and to the right, possibly not. And then just lower your arms, lift and roll your shoulders. When you open a limb, whether it's your leg or your arm, you should feel that it almost unfurls very elegantly. And this is very much a ballet thing. And as you know, I would never make a ballerina on any level whatsoever. But Eric Franklin is the choreographer who's written all this thing about ballet dancers who get hugely compromised, and they say you bring your limb in almost a further out and feel that it's floating on air, so that it's just a slightly different or subtle approach. And the leg you bring in, and you see ballerinas, don't you? You would know,
Yeah.
you float out. Well, you can tell you've done dance.
They can't balance.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
But
Brilliant.
that is the move.
Before they
Never
live.
regretted that.
Yes.
It's
Because
also quite Latino. I can't remember which one. Whoops. Where they go
oh yes,
whatever
Yes.
that one is.
yes, okay.
Not flamenco.
Tango-ish.
Yes.
Oh,
Is
but
it
you
the
do.
tango?
Yeah, you do that. Yeah, the tango.
Yeah.
You do that
They
kind
do
of.
the leg
Oh,
flicks.
do you?
Yes, I can't remember what it's called now, but
Really, that's very impressive, Charlotte.
yeah, no, I did ballroom in Dubai.
Ah,
Yeah,
did you?
yeah. When I was in Dubai, I had ballroom lessons, and I can't remember what this is called now.
Flicks.
But you kind of catch behind the other leg, and you,
Wow.
yeah.
It is a
that's
very
kind of-
nice.
Leg flicks, what they called?
Sorry,
What they
Christine.
call
Yeah,
them,
how
actually.
lovely.
In jive, they're called kicks.
Oh, right.
Yeah, maybe they are. I can't remember. It could be in
But-
tango as well.
So medically, Charlotte, you might be able to tell me. I know on the shoulder that some people can't go straight up, and there's a limitation.
Usually they've got
cuff.
their
rotator
rotator
cuff.
cuff, yeah, they've got like calcification of their rotator cuff. So if you've damaged it, often men who play rugby get that. because they've torn their rotator cuff or whatever, and so then you get limited to about here, you
Yeah.
can't go all the way up.
It's across here. I
So
can't
to
remember.
do that,
Yeah.
either go out, but actually the ballerina way is to go in, to go
Franklin,
out.
is it the Franklin?
Yes, Eric Franklin, yeah.
Is it more like that?
So it,
Or is it more like that?
oh God, you'd know more than me, you're the expert, how you would come in to go out.
Well, I mean, if I was dancing, I'd go like that.
Okay. You go like that,
Probably,
but
but
you come in to go
yeah.
out.
I've
But
done
it's
it 50 years.
the same dance
Yoga, shouldn't
to
you?
do.
Yes.
Well, yes, and
Isn't it a
Jules,
thing?
her belly dancing. So then you go with the legs, the same, you go in to go out, and it gets round.
Oh, it stops the
I'm killing
blockage.
her.
Oh, okay. It stops the
It stops the
blockage in
the
there.
blockage in people who've got limitations in their hips.
Okay, yes, because it probably starts to rotate the hip
Yeah,
first, so
it's
then you can.
balance, isn't
Yes.
You get
I've got
round
no
that
balance, my feet
aspect of it.
completely
That
crashed.
limits damage,
I was out with
Yeah.
my
which is then when you go
friend
in
for
to go
lunch
up,
about a month ago.
you might only
We were
go to
walking in
there.
Barnes.
People with heart conditions that aren't medicated, they're not
And
supposed
she
to
said,
go up
"What's happened to your
the
feet?"
shoulder. But if you are
And I
medicated,
said,
you
"Well,
can
they're
still
just
put
completely
pressure there.
sweated.
Or if you've had
Why don't you
surgery,
wear proper
Mm.
shoes?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Then it
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
wear
Yeah.
it there. You don't
You
necessarily
need new sketches
Those
now,
ones
they do
are.
that art
Yes.
well.
You just
Yeah.
know you don't want to
Well,
pull
they
it, you
can't
just go to
do
where
it.
you can. And if it really is, then you
Because
just
that
need
is the
hands
thing.
Yes.
That's a fascinating
I'm all
set of
right on that foot. I've got
instructions,
mask. And that one,
pelvic,
It's
all kinds of aspects of the body.
Kind of winds it up.
Winds it up.
Yeah.
And there's an aspect of visualisation as well. So like,
It's
if you're
like
lifting
a
your
whole puts your
throat,
body out of
imagine a
alignment.
cobra snake,
Your
it
feet
back
are
and
right.
knees,
Yeah.
comes
Oh, and
up,
everything,
put your
pelvis,
hand
and you can
there,
actually
it
up to your neck
supports
and
the head, so that when you lift your chin,
Just
you're
doing
not
that
dumping your head back.
massage.
Mm.
And so
It's
if
a
you
bit
could have
of
well,
reflex
in the yoga
You
world,
haven't got one.
you can, in a small class like this, you can say it and watch people like
No.
walk.
Well, that's
But
the
in a
thing.
larger class, about 20 people,
Something that's not wrong with
you're
you.
not going to be able to watch everybody, and
Yeah.
someone somewhere won't else whack their
So,
head
yeah,
back.
so quite
And then
hard
you're in
to
trouble.
trouble.
So it's,
I reckon
it's perfectly safe,
onions,
but if you know how to
put your
handle it.
balance
So,
out and your foot. That's why my foot is gone.
Well, it could change your whole everything.
What
in
can
your body.
change everything?
But if I had
If
the
you-
operation,
we
you
just
have to
say about feet. If you haven't got a good,
I
stance
haven't.
on your feet, if you've got something wrong with your feet, I'm saying this as a layman's sort of thing through massage and reflexology. If it doesn't sound very mental, it can put your whole body out if you're not walking properly.
Oh, it does.
It can affect your hips. It can also go up and affect everything, just right up to your neck. Some people who have feet problems eventually sort of create neck problems and
I
stuff,
think
and that's
that's what I've
where
got.
it's come from. So I was just saying to Patsy that if you don't wear shoes, if you've got a problem with your feet and pronating or whatever way around it is, and try and walk properly, it can just affect your everything in your whole posture. Yeah.
So on that thing, and we'll just do a Tadasana, but I also, a fascinating book called We Are Our Brains, it's written by a Dutch doctor, and his view is that everything, including the imbalances in our body, you can see I go in slightly there, comes from the brain. And their view is, or his view is, that a muscle is commanded by the brain ultimately, but it's going way beyond my limit of understanding of how the body works. So Tadasana, press your feet into the ground, so lift the toes and spread them slightly, not enough that they make them uncomfortable, but just slightly, just put them down. Tense the knees and let them go. Either tap or press in here, and that pulls you in there and lifts you up, and then release. You can further enhance that by just pressing on the chest, which will just almost imagine lifting up from the chest and release. Lift and roll the shoulders, release away from you, away from your ears. Turn the head slightly from left to right. Just slightly goes forwards and backwards. If you had a mirror, you think you're standing straight, but sometimes you often are coming forward or backwards. Mostly people go forward in fear, meeting the world. You are perfectly balanced with your head on top of your body. Tensing the knees just activates the muscles, I think, either side, but possibly your
And it core, yeah, I think so, in your core muscles.
core muscles. So it's just a wake up of
Yeah.
where things aren't activated. Now, if we stood like this all the time, but we don't, we tend to slump forward with gravity. So before we come to sitting, we haven't really done enough stretching. I know you like to stretch. So just raising the hands, stretch, come down through the centre, hands on the knees, lengthen, half lift, breathe out, tuck in, breathe in, half lift, stay here as you breathe out. And breathing in, press your feet down and rolling up vertebra by vertebra to standing. Lift and roll the shoulders, turn your head to the left and to the centre, and turn the head to the right and to the centre. And again, circle the hands up, really palms together, just stretch, come down through the centre. And the same thing, soften your knees, soften your elbows, hands on the shins, lengthen, tailbone to top of the head, breathe out, soften knees and elbows, chin to chest. Breathe in, lengthen. Stay here as you breathe out. And breathe in, soften the knees, press your feet down, and roll up vertebra by vertebra to standing. Lift and roll the shoulders. Turn the head to the left and turn the head to the right. One of the reasons I keep on going on about lifting and rolling the shoulders is that as we get older, the head tends to come forward. That is
I'm really bad at that.
older age, but it's apparently a response. If you get an amoeba or any kind of organism and you poke it, it curls in protection. And the curling in, which we do, is protection against life. You know, it's really protection like that. The opposite is laid back, but you'll get like the alpha male type, let it all hang out sort of thing. But often one's response to fear is to come forward. But once you start going forward too much, you are setting the pose there. The muscles kind of hold you always like that. Things aren't moving, and so the muscles kind of contract, and then you can't lift up. And I remember my dad slightly came forward, and he couldn't lift up. You say to people, lift up and stand, they can't. So it's useless saying that. You just ask them to put their hand here and just lift slightly from here to lift and open that up to get around that problem. But it's, if you're coming forward, you're compromising your respiratory function, but we all do it because of gravity. So just swirling the hands one way, swirling the hands the other way, and then lower, swirling the one way, and then swirling the other way. Lower. Circle the hands up. Stretch out, look sun ray. Circle the hands down. And circle up. And circle down. And then this wrists. Sue, I'm going to put you on the spot here. This here, the little fingers which you do in reverse prayer, is that lung or, I can look it up, but lazy, lung or heart? I think it's lung.
Is this a lungs on the outside?
On the outside,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. The heart.
So, it's interesting, we lose in like reverse prayer. So this just kind of exercises that very gently, kind of going around. And then I think the back of the hands are lymphatic, aren't they? The same on the feet.
Lymphatic's the same as, so imagine your fingers are your toes. The upper lymphatic system is here, whereas it's the same on your toes. It's down in between each toe, so it relates to your upper lymphatic system. And then it's the same on your ankle bone, is the lower one, so that's sort of around the wrist area. Wrist area
Yes. Okay. And then to make sure we really are getting to the lymphatic, hands out and just kind of do that, which will help if you're doing any close artwork.
I haven't done today.
You haven't done today.
This week.
But you have been doing a lot, really a lot of bits and pieces and whatever. And then just lift and roll the shoulders. And we're going to get the chair and come to a seated position. It doesn't matter if you put the chair on the mat, because the only bit that doesn't is if you put it right on the edge. Otherwise, the mat will sink down and then it just bounces back up again. If that makes sense, does it? Just on the edge of it. So you can have something under your feet if you want your feet up. Just say as I'm up. No, all right, then that's fine. So this I find really interesting. So hands on the knees, breathing in, sit up. Somehow, when you're not sitting on the ground, you get a better movement, I think. Breathing out, curl in, breathing in. And I don't know why, there's often a limitation.
You're more restricted with your legs out or folded, aren't you, than you are with them. It's less restriction. Yeah.
And it's more comfortable. Unless you're like a super yogi guru, breathing out into chest, breathing in. So you can do this on a plane, at your desk. And the other thing for doing it at your desk, for those who might be working, is that it rejuvenates, it clears your mind. So you get an influx of, not inspiration, but creativity. Your brain kind of like gets a little bit of a booster. You know how you can work if you can't think straight any longer. It kind of clears that. So this is like cat-cow, just warming the spine up. Because your hands are holding the knees, you're controlling how far you go forward. So not in our cases, but if you'd herniated a disc and anything was oozing, coming forward can make that worse. But nobody would come to yoga while they had an active herniated disc, I would suggest. But here you're controlling how far you go forward. So everything is very much to what suits you. And then come to an upright position. This next one is working that was the base chakra. This is the Sacral Chakra, the next one up, between the navel and the tailbone and perineum. And then just very, very gently circle. Now, I prefer to do this exercise standing up. So I'm going to invite us to do both, but just try. And again, sitting down, you can swell down and swell up. It's the water element, so imagine you're like a fish diving down and up. By the way, we've had babies, we've had baby fish. We've got a whole shoal of baby fish.
Wow.
Phil is absolutely thrilled. He monitors his babies every day.
Oh, sweet.
And then just...
And he's got the thick that the fish can't get in there.
the fish are fine. It's just that the silly things swim right at the front where pond skaters can get in. I hope they're not eating them. But we've got some, and they're just swirling the other way. And coming to standstill. So I want to do that same exercise but standing. I don't normally get to up and down, but I just want to see if you find it any better, because I do. So think of Jules and her belly dancing. Keep saying to her, you're going to do another belly dancing session. Have your hands on your waist. So this is the same exercise, but again you're swirling. And you can swirl a lot, or you can swirl a little bit. So you can really bend, or you can just do it a little bit. And I prefer
you get more movement because your
movement.
dips are involved, aren't they? So
I find it easier to swirl the other way, but do you? Because I just need feedback as to if you prefer standing to sitting for this.
it's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah, the different, yeah, you're right, because you're sitting
It's
doing it
all
sort of more
dynamic.
one plane, aren't you?
Dynamic standing.
Yeah.
Dynamic standing.
Yeah.
So this is
Helps
the basis
different
of belly
muscles,
dancing.
different one.
Yeah, probably more core involved.
And if you really, do your, thing, you have to let your tummy go to be able to do it. Trained ballerinas sometimes find this quite difficult because they're
Yeah.
letting go.
I can't, the belly dancing?
Yeah, they can't let go.
I was rubbish. I'm not a trained dancer. But it's interesting you say that because I hated it.
You hated it.
I actually didn't like it.
So then just release and then come back down to seated.
I like the idea, but
I had
Yeah.
a ballerina who ran ballet school. She used to come to me and she's much older lady, very lovely, very controlled. And with that rigidity of control, and it's beautiful, she said that she couldn't let her tummy go because it was letting go of her control.
Which is
Whereas-
against her training.
Which is against her training, but then you think of the belly dancers in, I don't know, wherever countries you think of, and they are very sensual and fluid. And, you know, they've got that thing about them, but it's just interesting, isn't it? So then just sitting up, raise your left hand, just bring it over to the right thigh, and then the right hand behind. So you can either hold the chair, or you can hold the chair behind or on your waist, breathing in, lengthen, and breathing out, just turn. But the head's the last thing to turn. And if your head doesn't turn, it doesn't matter because your body's turning. So again, as we get older, just stay here for an in and out breath, we tend to lose the capability of turning round behind us, which you need to do for driving, and then breathing in, just come back, just lengthen the body. And you'll see people, elderly men or women, just creaking their whole body around to go like that to sort of see, and then creaking back. They've lost that turn ability. So then it would be raising the right arm, have to think about this, to the left thigh, wherever. The hand, wherever it falls comfortably, breathing in, lifting, and breathing out, turning a little bit. Breathing in, lifting, and breathing out, turning. And staying here for an in and an out breath. And then coming back to the centre. And just sliding your hands forward. I'm going to just bend my elbows and have a nod forward, lengthening along the spine. When you've had a twist, it's quite nice, a rotation, to even out the body or compensate for that. If you're super into your twists, you would come right, you can come right down, but or right down there, it doesn't matter, wherever it feels good for you. Just lengthening along the spine, space between the vertebrae. Press your hands down, then they just gently sit up. And then the next one, I think, is so interesting because you think opening your arm is nothing, but I'm just going to invite you to place your left hand on your right bit. Pectoral, thank you. And then just as you open your arm, as you breathe in and breathe out, just feel the muscles moving underneath so something as simple as this, you can feel the muscles moving. Whereas if you don't connect in with that, and I have a feeling this also connects into the muscles, help me Charlotte, into the pericardium, does it? As you're stretching your chest out.
You've got pectoralis major and pectoralis minor underneath, and the intercostal muscles as well.
Okay.
So the pec major is the one that's coming down here.
Okay.
This one here. That's the main one that I think you can feel. It joins into the sternum. So, the pericardium is underneath everything, so it's muscles are on top of the rib cage, whereas the pericardium is underneath the rib cage.
Would that move the pericardium? Not necessarily.
I can't really feel anything.
Just a muscle,
This bit here.
just it's here.
Is that bit there?
Yeah, lift your hand, just went
Put the flat of your hand.
You put the flat of your hand on there, right on there.
Where?
Right on there.
There.
That's it.
And just the other
Yeah, a
one.
little bit. I can feel the muscle here.
Just across sort of here, yeah.
Yeah, I could put
So
some
yeah, if I
muscle
lift
in
it up and down.
Yes, this is how you move it. Yeah.
Change sides. But anyone who's had heart surgery or worried about their heart or and they're worried about lifting their hands up or whatever, this is really simple and safe because you're exploring bending the elbow, so it's not a yank straight out, it's just exploring the movement out. It's very supported, it's very safe.
You're expanding the rib cage, so you're going to be creating more space. That probably will free up the heart or whatever, because you're expanding, as you do this, you are expanding the rib cage, but aren't you?
Yes, the funny is, I need that pointed out to me because there's so much going on that it's kind of, you forget that, but
Yes.
it's just such a simple exercise. When you're lying on the ground, you can open your arms out as well and just have that, just lie there and just stretching it out to, as you said, increase capacity. So that's interesting. So it's respiratory as well then.
Yes, and then also you're expanding the thoracic space, so you've got more room for the heart and everything.
Yeah.
So that's probably
And
why, yes,
Sometimes they,
you've got more
it
room,
doesn't interest me.
enlarging the
I'm also
thoracic space. So that will be freeing up heart space. Then of course the lungs, as you breathe in, will take up that space as well. But yes, you are creating more chest space as you do this. And then as you come back in again, because you're, as well as the pectoralis muscles, you're opening the intercostal muscles a bit as well. And here, the muscles in between the ribs.
Yes.
Opening up that as well. So that's all creating that sort of,
Yeah.
like the umbrella breathing that
Yes.
Pilates, sort of like that. Yeah.
But I believe this, that when you do fast yoga and you're stretching up down, you don't have time to really
No,
get
to
into
really
it.
get into it, yeah, and really open the space.
Yes.
Yes,
But
exactly.
you wouldn't choose to do this necessarily because you think, oh well, it's just interesting. So, coming to the throat. So the throat, physically, of course, is a bridge between the head and body, but emotionally, it's where what we're saying to the outside world doesn't necessarily correlate with what we're feeling. And I always say, classically, when someone says, "Would you like to do that?" you say, "Yeah, all right." You think, "No, you don't want to do that." There's that kind of disconnect, and that can show up tensing here. So turn to the left, turn to the right. You're also balancing thyroid and parathyroid, but if you were paranoid about balancing that, you do this about 50 times. Breathing into the left and breathing out to the right. And there are other neck exercises, of course. You're balancing, it's the left and the right brain hemispheres, so communication between the two hemispheres. It's almost the neural pathways, as an understanding, you just get a little tingle there. But then coming back to the centre, I like to do the back of my hand. My aunt Pal always used to do this, very elegant. Just you're massaging up the throat. You can do this, but I quite like this. You can go around the side, getting into the muscles there. So I know that the jaw can carry a lot of tension. You can almost go along the jaw, like here, but around there, chin, and then just releasing. And then your neck chakra is the crown chakra. So many things you could do here. Just take a couple of fingers and go around in a circle. I don't know what you think, Sue, but I was always taught that if someone comes straight onto your forehead, they're kind of invading your personal space. So you've got to kind of be quite careful about doing that to somebody else. You can't just go straight on. It's like touching someone's stomach. You just can't go straight
Yeah, I
onto
think
their
you
tummy.
sort of come round from
The side or
sides.
whatever.
But if you do that at this stage, somebody would have their eyes closed anyway. So yeah, it's very. But when you're treating someone, you never come in straight. At them anyway. You always move in.
So if you expand that line to almost your temples and then to the tops of the ears, there's that dent, just pressing in there. Press and release and press and release. That's getting into your hearing chakra, your ear chakra, and tinnitus, and all other things as well. I find that quite relieving if I've got a headache, just to slightly come forward with the head and just press around there. But of course you can extend that pressing around the bone, dropping down to the jaw, and just massaging behind the base of the ear. And I don't know what this bit here is called, the jawbone, the back of the jawbone. And that apparently connects into the ear as well as the eyes. So anybody who gets like me or you, Patsy, sinusitis and clogged up hay fevery, allergy, blur, that can kind of quite help along here.
When you sit down, I'll show you where your sinuses are on your feet, and that's actually one of the most helpful things on your feet to.
Do you want to show us now, or do you want to wait
I
till
can't
you
really
Okay,
reach,
okay,
to
right.
be honest. I can't
Okay,
really
no,
reach,
let's-
I can't
we're all
really
getting
reach
down.
down.
Okay, I'll
It's
remind
sitting
you.
down, it's easier.
So, salute to the sun, seated. There are different versions. So, inhale, exhale, hands together. Inhale, hands up. Coming down through the centre and sliding your hands down to wherever, your shins right down to the floor, depends how energetic you're feeling. And then slide up. And hand under the left knee, just swing a little bit, supporting that. That moves the fluid in the knee. I meant to say that to Annie because she fell over, she's got knee problems, which is why we haven't done proper salute to the sun, why we haven't done kneeling. And then stretching the leg out. Just point and flex the toes. Circle one way, and then circle the other way. And then place the foot down, and just massage, that's an entire marmor point around the knee and underneath. And then transfer to the other side, and just hold underneath there. And again, just, if ever you had a sore knee, just doing this moves the fluid in the knee. Because it's difficult to exercise the knee. Hinge joint, is it a hinge joint? So this does that. And then just extend out, point and flex a couple of times, and then circle, and then circle, and then bring the foot down, and then just sitting up, opening the arm to the side and just turning to look at your thumb as little or as much as you would like. Someone who's very compromised, this is quite a nice turn. They can always bend their elbow, or you can keep the elbow and the hand on the waist, and then come back to the centre. And then again, snaking the hand out to your limits. The electric touch there, turning. You can see for people, older people, if they can't get their arm up, it doesn't matter. They can just bend their elbow in, or they can just place their hand on their waist.
I'm just saying I've gone the wrong way, but then I always go the wrong way.
Oh no, haven't I?
No, it's me.
Then come back,
Normally me.
and then lift and lower your shoulders. And you might want to do a nod forward. We did such a mild turn, it's not really necessary, but you nod forward, lengthening from the tailbone to the top of the head. And then coming up. And then hold the chair, this is your back bend. Lift the chest, lift the chin, look up, controlled lift of the chin, not flopping your head back. And this is a mindfulness exercise, but it's uplifting because you're lifting your chest. It's also back bend. And then come to upright. And then hands up. And come back down through the centre. Lift and roll the shoulders. And we're going to do another salute to the sun, but standing. So, just for the visual on me on the camera to see the positions. Again, I just wanted to show you. Inhale, exhale, hands together. Inhale, hands up. Come down through the centre. And place your hands on the chair. Just check that your chair is solid. It's not going to collapse on you. That, yeah, you need to open it out. Your cat-cow, dip in your back, round in your back. Dip in your back, and round in your back. And then we're coming into downward dog. So for downward dog, you just walk your feet back, hip width apart, perhaps hold the edge of the chair, just feel comfortable. Bend your knees, and extend your knees a little bit. Adjust your feet however you want to. So this is a really safe downward dog. Bending the knees and just extending. You get the benefits of an inversion. You don't have to go down quite so far. And very safe, you've got support. And to come out of downward dog, you just walk your feet towards you, towards the chair. Bend your knees, press your feet into the ground and roll up vertebra by vertebra to standing. Hands up and then just down by the side. Lift and roll the shoulders. And we'll do another one. Just see how different that is. But you'd never dream of someone still use the chair for downward dog and say, yeah, well, you can actually do that. But again, it was very interesting. Hands up, stretching. Come down through the centre, bending your knees. Hands onto the chair, your cat-cow. Feel that you can adjust your feet and everything about you. Dipping your back, looking up, rounding your back. Dipping your back, and rounding your back. And then come to your downward dog by just walking your feet back. You can come a little bit, you can really stretch your downward dog. Bend your knees, you can walk the dog one knee at a time, or you can bend both knees. You walk closer to the chair for a softer downward dog and further away. You can almost come to a sort of semi-squat, which releases the lower back on this thing, and not tense, not stress yourself out. And then to come out a bit, walk your feet towards the chair. When you feel that you are close enough, press your feet into the ground, soften your knees and roll up vertebra by vertebra to standing. Raising your hands up, stretching your hands and then lowering down and lifting and rolling your shoulders. And then come back to a seated position again. We'll do another one before we come to lying on the floor. Yes, anyone who's got balance issues or just wants to get into a slightly different downward dog, that's again quite interesting. Or if you're in an airport or a train station, you think, I really want to stretch out, you can hold a chair and just stretch out a little bit more. So again, it's just quite nice. So again, just lift and roll your shoulders. Hands at the heart centre. Circle your hands up. So someone who's very much older, I was thinking your father wouldn't want to go up here, he might just come to here.
Yeah.
And then just invitation to here. So an older person would stay here maybe. They might go to the knees, they might go a little bit further. And just again, cat-cow now. Dipping your back, stretching, breathing out, rounding. So we're introducing the cat-cow element. But you can have your hands on your body, on your legs where you want to, cat-cow. And then sliding your hands up. The hands act as a support, especially with someone who's got osteoporosis or frail bones. They need the support to sort of to get up. And then just lift and roll the shoulders. And then you can either hold onto the legs, or you don't have to hold onto the legs as we did last time. You can hold the chair. Again, they might prefer holding onto the chair to get the leg up, and just a couple of that and circle. They can have a cushion underneath their feet to again support their lifting, and stretch your feet and just curl them in and lower. You can hold underneath here, or so you can just hold the chair and stretching. That really stretches out the blood supply, and then circling one way, and then circling another way, and then just stretching the feet. And then you can also, for people who are not used to moving, you can just bounce the feet, or if they can't move their feet, just get their heels moving. It gets into the vibration sets right up to here. So for people who are not moving and completely static, it's quite a nice way to get the blood moving, but without not moving quite so much. Apparently children in the class have been very noisy. If you do that, they love doing it, make the noise and it calms them down. And then just release. And then again, just different ways of doing this. You can invite someone to put their hand simply somewhere, left hand on the right leg, right hand on the waist even. Less effort. Sit up and just turn slightly. Sit up and just turn slightly. And sit up and just turn slightly. Stay here maybe. Remember that the head is the last thing to turn and the least important, because it's the body, the head will follow naturally, no yanking. And then come back. And again, the right hand goes, you don't have to lift all the way up, you can just do it low. And hand can stay on the waist. You're opening the lung as you've got this wings thing on the left elbow, lifting and turning, and lifting and turning, and turning. And then coming back, if you want to be very technical, bring your hands slightly inside and just slightly lean forward, lengthening from the base and then just curling forward. If someone is quite scared of coming forward, another point I wanted to make, where you've got a very stiff back, you can invite someone to just put a jumper, a cushion, a bolster, luggage, whatever, rolled up mat, in here. If they hold it, it lifts them, it supports the spine, particularly if they're very frail at the base of the spine, and they have that fear of coming forward. People who've got really, really compromised backs have this awful fear of coming forward.
If we were on a long car journey and my back so that's what I do, is I put a rolled up something there and then
Come forward.
lean over it. It's quite good without having to get out of the car, yeah.
So it supports your back, it takes away the fear factor and increases the safety factor, and you'll obviously have, this is too high for me really, but I just wanted to show it, lengthen and just come forward, and you're just relieving the pressure at the lower back, but you're doing it very safely. For someone who's you have concerns of frailty and bone frailty, whatever else you've got worried about, this can go a long way to supporting that fear and actually opening you out of the lower back.
Stops you going too far.
It stops you going too far. This is too high for me, I will concede that. And then just release. And then the final one, if you lift and roll your shoulders, hold the chair. So again, this is standing up straight. A lot of people won't stand up and they don't like standing up, and they go like this in their chair. So just holding the chair, inviting them maybe to place a hand here and just lift, even if it's a little bit from here, just going into it. You can stay like that. You can invite them to look up, not engaging the chin at all if you're worried about their head, because as I said, so many people don't listen. They just like, oh, their head goes right back. But if you then want to invite to lift their chin slightly, raise the eyes are being disconnected. And again, Charlotte, if you knew the brain area, my understanding is it disconnects the eyes from the stress centres of the brain. Where are the stress centres of the brain? Are they everywhere?
Mostly sort of hypothalamus, the sort of the more primitive parts of the brain. So hippocampus and hypothalamus, so the sort of the innermost parts of the brain rather than the cortex.
So lifting up, would that alter that balance somewhat, or not really? Or
I think, I don't know, I have to think about how that might impact. Yeah, it may just be the fact of changing position, but you're sort of opening up. I think that sort of opening up and looking outwards is something that helps with stress and relaxation anyway. So
the other thing is, if you're looking, your focus is slightly, or you're turning slightly, or you're looking up, you don't necessarily think. You do think of your stresses, but just for that moment they're suspended. So when you come back to them, you reconnect to them perhaps in a slightly different way. Is the mindfulness theory behind it?
well, lots of people, when they're trying to think of an answer to a question, will look up, won't
They do, yes.
And kind of, you ask them a question, they have to think, they'll look up. It's a
Yes.
reflex, and I don't know why that is, but I know.
You're
I do.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
To try and get a concentration, isn't it? It's somehow, I don't know neurologically why that
Why that
works.
works. I'd be interested to know the neurological reason behind it. And then you'll be very pleased to know we're going to come to the mat. So just fold your chair up. I'm so annoyed that the clock doesn't seem to work. Obviously that has become obsolete or something on the screen. So it kind of stays, whereas it used to allow you to tell me what I was doing.
You can reset, can't you? You can set dates, calendar and stuff.
Oh, so maybe I need to get full into sort of doing stuff. My key support. My key support.
I'll tell you what, just quickly, because you had the sinus problem.
Yes,
I'll show
yes,
you
yes,
what
yes.
So the reflex points for your sinuses are down in between your toes.
Oh, okay.
So
All the toes.
Yes, right across, because that correlates to right, because your sinuses obviously is right across your face here. So you go down inside the big toe. So if you use, I use my index finger, sort of move it along and push in, and then
Okay.
go up the other side, up your next toe, over the top, and then and you will find if you've got sinusitis or problems that this will actually feel a little bit painful.
Okay.
So
You
then
need to
just,
remember this, Patsy.
yes, but that's we used to find when we used to do the case studies, reflexology, that this was one of the reflexes that worked best, trying to help people. It was quite effective. Yeah. So.
Feel and either right foot, right side.
Yes, well, yes. I mean, it's another thing that both feet cover both areas. So yeah, right across.
So, the question I wanted to ask then from that, but connecting into you, Charlotte, I get very confused. So, the right side of the brain, does that control the left side of the body? Or not
Yes.
really? It does.
Yes, the motor side, yes.
The motor side.
Yeah, so if you have a stroke, then in the right side of the brain, you get left-sided paralysis.
But it's not. You don't have a crossover with the reflexology
No.
on that. It's
Okay.
things on the right hand side control what's on the right
Yes, on
hand
the
side.
right-hand side.
So your heart, although your heart's only sort of slightly off centre to the left, isn't it? Heart's only on your left hand side, and your liver's only on your right.
So then what about breath work and breathing? So when you breathe into your left nostril, does that affect the left side or does it
Both. I mean, I think
Yeah,
it goes.
Breath would be both, wouldn't it? Because you're still taking it in, aren't you?
Yeah.
affect? So
Sorry, I'm sorry.
That's
No,
right.
no.
Sounding like
Dr. Sue here. Sorry. We now have a professor consultant.
I have to elevate Charlotte to
Well, there's
professor.
plenty of
I
things that you
would-
know that I don't know.
I know I'm just a real know-all, and my depth of knowledge is about here, you know.
Your
So just
technology with
take it.
technology is-
It's just very different, but I don't want to sound as if I'm too knowledgeable. Maybe
just-
not.
I just like to know.
I just have a great interest in it all.
I don't retain necessarily all the in-depth muscles, but then occasionally it's quite useful to know what it does do with the body. And then you do need a couple of muscles to kind of.
I find it hard learning those because then you don't really need to. I mean, even probably if you were practicing, you just don't ever need to know.
Well, I learned
every
anatomy in my first 2 years of medical school.
Yeah, and
Unless you become a surgeon,
Yeah,
you
you
don't
don't
need
really
so
need
much
to
of it.
know
Or a
all this stuff,
radiologist.
yeah,
If you're
yeah.
a radiologist or a surgeon, you need
Yeah,
to know your anatomy
yeah,
really well. But other than that, actually,
yeah.
you don't really.
I know a friend of Phil's is a anaesthetist, consultant anaesthetist at Bristol, and someone asked him about like a heart attack or saving someone's life. He said, "Don't look at me. He said, I'm the worst person in the world to heart attack. I would let you die."
I'm sure something would kick in and he wouldn't, but you know.
Friend of Phil's was
This is an anaesthetist.
Yeah, it's a consultant.
You're right.
We should hope so if he's looking after someone in
Think
an
you'll be all right?
operation.
Fine,
Just
you're
get one of the
modest.
nurses to get the paddles out.
He'd know his ABC, yeah, reducing cardiac output. You know.
I mean, he's
Would know
now
that.
he retired, and then he was
Modest.
called back a bit in the pandemic. I don't
Oh,
know what
yes.
to do what, but seems delighted
Yeah,
to go back.
they got a lot of people in. Yeah.
He looks a spitting image of that blonde American actor called not Clive Owens, that's his dog.
Oh yes,
Owen
Wilson.
Owen Wilson. He is
Oh,
a
really? How
spitting
funny.
image of him, which is as unlikely what you can imagine. So Sue's leading the way.
Oh no, sorry, just stretching
Come
back.
to
Sorry, I wasn't trying.
line
Hurry
really
you on.
spent. Just resting the hands, just if anybody's in a hurry, then just say because I'm just running over, but just need to flag that up. Just hands on the tummy, elbows are slightly out. So actually here, your lungs have the optimal. You're giving space for your lungs basically. And again, if you're talking about older people, you can also let your knees touch if you want to constructive rest. If you're talking about older people, if they're lying in bed, they can easily do this just to help their breathing. Sometimes they might like support under their head, and That's fine too, but it's just giving space to both the lungs. Again, I don't know if we're just breathing here. There's a breath exercise where you breathe in a little bit, hold the breath a little bit more, and then up to the full, and then you breathe out, and then you reverse it. And I did that in a class once. The lady said, she went to the Royal Brompton, and she said, yes, that's one of the breath exercises they do at the Royal Brompton. And she said they found that through some trauma or something had happened, all her breathing side on one side had switched off. The muscles of her lungs really weren't, lazy or working. I was thinking, how can that happen? Well, perhaps it does. Again, that's a question for Charlotte, but
she may not be using her, intercostal muscles on one side. She might be sort of squeezing it a bit rather than, inflating from both, and using her tummy to inflate her rib cage.
oh, okay. So that exercise, all right. Thank you. That exercise that I was talking about is you breathe in a little bit and hold the breath. Breathe in a little bit more. Hold. Breathe into the top. Hold it, and then just breathe out. Through the nose or the mouth sometimes. It's like filling up a balloon. You can just breathe in a little bit more. Up to the top. Feel your lungs like a balloon expanding from the inside and then just release. But it's a way of expanding your lung capacity without really worrying about it too much. A little bit more. A little bit. Up to the top. And breathe out. And then the reverse of that, which I don't like at all, but I'm interested in your opinion, is to breathe in totally up to the top and then let the breath out the stages. So breathing in a big, and then a little bit out, and then totally out. And then breathing in one big splurge in, hold the breath, and then a little bit out, and a little bit out. Just totally let it all go out. And we'll do the third one. Breathe in totally. A little bit out. A little bit out. And a little bit out. If you really wanted to increase your lung capacity, you could do that same exercise, breathing in and out, exceptionally through the mouth, with a straw. I find that I don't get enough breath and I go into a panic. And if you go into a panic with the breath, then you're negating the benefit of the exercise. But I just put that out there. So then hug your left knee into your chest. This is a classic Apanasana. Apana is the foundational energy. Very good for the lower back, very good for any pain. Just enjoy breathing in and out, and you'll find maybe that as you're holding the left knee into the chest, the left knee just relaxes into the pose a little bit more. And then just very gently release the left knee back to the ground. Left foot back to the ground, sorry. And transfer your attention to the right knee, hugging the right knee to the chest. Again, this is just very simplistic, static yoga therapy. This came out of Kerala, the Krishnamacharya original school in Kerala. They only once ever released teachers to the UK, just once. And I just happened to see it and went on their training. I nearly killed myself to go up to London with all the training that they were doing. And this was one of their therapy trainings. And then just very gently release back to the earth. Your right foot goes back to the ground. Just connecting to having your hands on your abdomen again. Nothing for you to do. Your elbows are slightly out like wings of a butterfly. You're giving space to the lungs. When you're like this on the floor, you can always take support under the head. But just checking that the chin is not up to the ceiling. Back of the neck is long, otherwise you're putting in a slight extra strain. And then bend both knees into the chest, hugging both knees into the chest. You can hold your knees, or you can open your knees a little bit and hold your shins. It's a static movement, so whatever works for you, hold wherever it suits you on the legs. And take a couple of breaths. And then supporting both feet as they, legs one at a time as they come back down to the earth. And then come back to the left leg again. Hug the left knee into the chest, keeping the right foot and knee where it is, or adjusted of course, if you need to. Hug the left knee into the chest, still holding it, let it drift to arm's length. Breathing out, hug the knee in. And just let it drift away to arm's length. And carry on doing this in your own breath time, breathing out as the knee hugs in, breathing in as the knee hugs out, breathing breathing in as the knee goes away, breathe out as the knee hugs in. And you can either use your hands to guide the movement, or you can, if you're core aware, and you want to activate those core muscles, you would loosen or lighten the touch of your hands on your knee and let the core muscles do the work of bringing the knee in. Subtle difference, or big difference between the two. So yogically, you're always supposed to engage the core at all times. Most people don't, I don't, I forget. And this is one way of doing that if you want to. And then very gently supporting the knee or the leg to place the left foot onto the ground. And then transferring your attention to the right leg, hugging the right knee into the chest, and again the same thing. Breathing out as it hugs in, holding it to arm's length as you breathe. I keep getting that wrong. Breathing out as you hug the knee in, and breathing in as the knee goes out. In yogic therapy training, you do each one of these movements and hold it for 6 breaths, and a breath is 1 in and 1 out. And on all the yoga therapy exams, they don't talk about minutes at all. They ask you to show all your workings for all the sequences in breath movements. So this would be, on this right side, written down as 6 breath movements. 6 inhalations and 6 exhalations. Whereas in the normal yoga exams, they don't, they work in minutes. It's only into therapy that they get to that. Which is just an interesting way of doing it. I suppose it's traditional whatever. And then just keep the right knee hugged in, let the left knee join it, and then hug both knees in. You can, depending on where you are, just open your knees a bit wider so that you've got a V, but whatever works, hugging both knees in, both knees away, both knees in. If someone on the therapy side has back issues, they would do nothing more for the first little while than to do some pelvic tilts or just lying with knees bent on the floor, holding their tummy. But as they become into the remedial recovery, they'll be doing this in a similar therapy world, which is really soothing for the lower back. It's encouraging the blood flow, you can feel it all tingling. And just very gently enjoy the last few huggings in and out. And then just very gently come to place your feet on the ground. And you can either stay in constructive rest, or with your hands on your tummy, or you can come to full Shavasana. Just letting the movement that we've made absorb into the body. So, and again, in yoga therapy, well, all yoga really, classically, you need to let the body recover from the movement you've made. And if you don't, rather than becoming beneficial, it can become de-energizing and burn you out. So we've done very gentle yoga anyway, but even here, the invitation is to let the body recover and absorb any movement that's been made. And while you're lying there, I'm just going to use the koshis, so you don't need to do anything. Because the koshis I've chosen today are my favourite sounds, and they're the elements of air connecting to the heart, and the element of air, as I said, and then the other one is water, which connects, of course, to water and the kidneys. It connects to our vitality and energy and life, and it connects to the kidney energy, the K meridians, and together they make a very lovely tinkly sound. So just while you're lying there for a couple of minutes, just absorbing the sounds of the movements. Just very gently become aware of the sounds go inside the studio, and the sounds permeating in from the outside. Become aware of sensations, the breeze might just be reaching you, and the sensation of the clothes on the skin. Sounds of the tinkling music acts as a distractor. Another mindfulness technique. Textured sound, a little bit quieter. And then you want to stay where you are, please do. But if you want to come to a seated position, taking your time to roll to the side. No hurry. And coming gradually to a seated position. Just come to bring your hands to your heart, however that works for you. Cross or hands together. Bow for yourself. Have a lovely day ahead. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
No one's doing but a thought for the day. And it would be, spiritual growth. And if you're not into spiritual things, focus. And the third one, blessings.
Nice.
So I thought actually, it doesn't matter, well, two things. The sound, any kind of sound, again, acts as a slight distractor. There is some, in the London studios, they've got something called braingasm, and they use a form of yoga nidra with textured sound, so slightly more discordant than this. But it just takes the mind just slightly, in a slightly different place, so it disconnects you from thinking about things. And I was thinking about the angel cards, it doesn't actually matter what the message is, particularly. I think it's just simply a reminder of, that it's always relevant.
You can take from it what you
What
want.
It's actually just a reminder of gratefulness, which is part of the mindfulness thing, that you're grateful for, thankful for whatever. And so as I said, it's almost immaterial what it is. It's just a reminder that, you know, there's things greater than life than Jamie losing his socks, for instance. I'm still going on about. So things like that. So yes.
Those are my absolute favourites.
Yeah,
so they're lovely.
And literally, I don't know why.
It does resonate.
Yes, they do. It's very
Dear Patsy, her daughter's a singer, Hattie, and got introduced to Otto, very gorgeous Otto, who's a sound therapist, and he does singing bowls and gong. And I did some further training with him. Not quite in the Otto League of Amazing, but he would always have the koshis, called koshis, and he would always have, this is air, which would be higher, and this is water.
So just do one and then the other.
So this is water.
Yeah.
And then this is air.
Yes, you can feel that's
Slightly
air.
higher.
It's
It's
lighter, isn't it?
And that feels
And that's a bit
slightly
sort of,
more
yeah,
underwater and subdued.
Yes.
So beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's
But
lovely.
Otto used to go round, and I think if I get up and go round to people, I'm going to be like a pumping elephant, given that I was never a ballerina.
It's not like that.
But he went round to
Yeah, you
people.
could hear him coming towards you, and then he could do it
Don't
with your head.
go.
and
Just
going
Lovely.
let the sound
Yeah.
float around me. And it's just such a lovely, I don't know, I just love it. I've got the other two, I've got fire and earth. I'll often go through all of them, but I'll finish generally with air and water.
But do you ever do them for yourself? Because if you're swinging your
I
arms,
don't
it's
know
harder
if
to
you
concentrate.
concentrate.
You
It probably doesn't work for yourself.
It does, it's very enjoyable,
Is it?
but it's
Oh,
not,
It's not quite relaxed because you've got to sort of swing them, haven't you?
Just swing
Yeah.
It's like when you rub yourself, it's not quite the same as somebody
No.
else doing it.
Yes.
Is it?
What you could do is hang them from the door,
yes.
and then attach a piece of string to your toe, and lie
Yeah, like a
down.
bungalow.
to take,
Yes, you wouldn't have to, so you could. Yeah.
or on a windy day.
Yes.
They are
are
delicate.
handmade in the Pyrenees, believe it or not, and they only connect to 4 elements, whereas you've got air is subdivided in some cultures into ether, so they include
Oh,
air and
yes,
ether.
that's right, yeah. It is,
That's why you've only got the 4, because you split it out into ether. So I'm glad you like those.
Yeah,
And yeah, I kept you way over, but